it. Let's get it, girls. I absolutely love these handlebars. They change the feeling of this bike so much. So much in the corners. It like sets you up. If you have bad body posture, or you know the posture that you get with the MT-09, you're like super straight up. This gets it. This is the posture you want. It sets you up for these curves. It's not gonna make the bike handle any better, but the rider is the biggest part, right, of a bike. And that's what these handlebars do. When you're riding the MT-09 in stock handlebar position, your arms are, the cut angle is not like this. The sweep is way up here. So you're like this, and then you're like 3 inches up like that. It's like riding a dirt bike. I mean, it's all up to personal preference. If that's how you like it, then do not do this. You will not like this. But if you like your bikes more sporting, definitely do this. That's what you need to do. Get these bars. You will not regret it. You will not regret it at all. If you value a little bit of giving up a little bit of comfort versus freaking just that feeling of riding a sport bike, and get these Woodcrafts. There's nothing wrong with them as far as comfort goes at all, really. So let me give you a little bit of background on the type of rider I am. This is it. I'm basically a daily rider that likes having fun every once in a while in the corners. I'm 5'6", 145 pounds. I have a 30-inch inseam, so that'll kind of, you have to take into consideration when I'm talking about some of the ergonomics on here. The bike is really, really comfortable to me. In fact, it feels very similar to the Triumph Street and the Triumph Thruxton Rs that I've recently ridden. I love the posture of those bikes. They're aggressive, but not super sport aggressive. Like when I'm on a super sport, my stomach is touching the tank. I am like this. It might have to be due with, you know, just like my shorter arms from not being that tall. I don't know, but that's how I am on every super sport. My stomach touches the tank, and look how much space I have here. I'm not even close to touching anything on here. So I've ridden for hours before on this bike, and I have no extra pain in my wrists, no extra pain in my back. Obviously I am more leaned in, but it's not uncomfortable at all. Like I said, it's very similar to that position in Triumphs. An aggressive naked sport bike is what I think this posture is on this. Or even some of the like middleweight super sport type bikes, you know what I'm saying? Like a Ninja like 650 or CBR 650 probably has a similar type of position. Let's pull over, get off the bike, and I'll show you a little bit more about the setup of these bars and tell you what to look out for when you're actually installing them. Alright, so the setup I got here is everything that came out of the box, and it's ready to bolt on to your MT-09. You don't really need anything else. Comes with this riser plate here. Finished pretty nicely. Comes with these, I think they're 13-inch bars, 12 or 13-inch bars, 2 sets, and then the clip-on adapters. And these are the 1-inch adapter sets. What that really means is from here, they actually rise up like 1 inch, right? I actually have these flipped in the down position, so you can actually get more if you find this uncomfortable in the up position, so raise your handlebars this way, but I wanted to get them as low as I could with this setup, so that's why I went with the 1 inch. Installation and everything, I'll post a video at the end. There's a couple of good videos out there of people installing these on their bikes. I will say that it is a bit of a pain. It's not difficult, it just takes a long time because you're basically measuring, drilling, and trying to fit all these controls on these bars to get everything the way that you want, and there is a little bit of wire routing that goes into it. I'll start on this side. This is like the easiest side to do first, so definitely do it on this side when you first do it before going on that side. This will kind of get you oriented to what you actually need to do to install them. So adapter plate goes in here. These bars here, you do have to drill a hole for this pod. I've heard people say that they don't drill holes. I just don't want this rotating. Maybe it's not as important on this side if it rotates a little bit, but definitely on the throttle side, I don't want that throttle tube rotating, and that part you will have to drill to as well. The hardest part about this side is routing the clutch cable. What I actually had to do is route the clutch cable so it's in between the first and second throttle body. So when you're actually underneath here into the motor back here, the clutch cable usually comes out on this side and it sweeps around this throttle body. You have to move it to this side in between here, or this thing is going to be bent like crazy and you're going to snap your clutch cable. So that took a long time to do. That was probably the hardest part to do, was routing it all in there. But you can do it. It's kind of just like fidgeting or getting, like, I don't know, putting something weird like a cable through this little slot that you can't really see very well in there. I guess you could lift the tank and all that kind of stuff to do it, but I didn't. I just kind of fidgeted around. One tip I'll tell you, when you do this, go ahead and wrap this with electrical tape, because all the paint on here will get all scuffed up and nasty. So I did repaint this so that it would be like a little less noticeable, but when you're rerouting this guy, definitely wrap this with electrical tape or something so it doesn't get all messed up. Moving on to this other side, this is a little bit more complicated because of all the stuff that's kind of like attached to here. Throttle tube right here. You'll have to play around with this to get it in the position that you need it to be in. One thing you want to make sure is that the throttle doesn't bind, that it snaps back easily. And when you get into the right position, you can alleviate some of that. If you're finding that it's binding, but you really need it to be in this position, like kind of like how I have it, right here on this cover, and I'll show you guys. I'll take off my gloves so you guys can see. This pops out, and behind this, behind here, that's the adjustment for the actual throttle cable. So you can loosen it so that you don't start binding this. Make sure it snaps clean. Again, there's a hole to drill for this. Make sure you drill it, dude, because I would not recommend just trying to clamp it down, because you do not want this throttle tube to be moving around. Especially with this throttle cable here, you could really get a binding situation where the throttle gets locked. Gauge pod, or this pod right here, also needs to be drilled. And then this area right here is super duper tight. You can see how tight everything is versus on this side where you have so much more space to kind of play around with. The way that I actually did this was I actually drew these things out, and I measured out, like, from the stock bar, the distance between all the controls, and just try to get it in that same type of position, mounting on these. So it made it a little bit more easier, but you're gonna have to play with it. I mean, you're gonna be drilling and putting things in different positions. I started with putting the cap of it here as an indexing point, if that helps you guys. And then these guys on the side, these don't come with bar ends, weighted bar ends. So you do get some vibration, I'll say, when you ride this bike over the stock ones. Just like any bike that you take the bar ends off of. These are just plastic caps. But they do fit other bar ends. You just can't use your stock ones anymore because they're smooth. You have to use the expanding ones. I actually have a set at home, but I didn't even bother to even install them because, to be honest, the vibration isn't that bad. It actually gives you a little bit more like feel like you're on a race bike, you know, with a little bit more vibration, but it doesn't make your hands numb. And then my mirrors clamp right on here. These bar end mirrors that I've been rocking forever, you can check it out, like it just clamps right onto these plastic nubs. So maybe when they get loose or whatever, I'll change them out, but so far they've been working out great for me. If you're curious if there's any interference with the tank, I will say that, check this out, guys. It's super close. Like, look at that. Like, it touches. This rubber bit touches here. I wouldn't recommend slamming these handlebars. It's so close, though, that I'm okay with living with it like that. And it totally, you can still engage the steering lock system, and you're good. You're still locked in. If that really does bother you, you can get 10mm spacers that go right here. So basically you get another piece that's like this, so it brings everything forward. And I think once you install those, you wouldn't have any problem doing this. A big bonus that I didn't know this kit came with was a gauge relocator. It centers your MT-09 gauge. Usually it's on the side and people complain about that. This centers it, and it needs to be centered, because if you didn't, you would again be hitting this brake fluid reservoir right here, and you wouldn't be able to mount anything. So good on them for including that. That's like an added bonus that you're going to have your gauge centered now. Minuses about it, I can't mount any windshields now anymore because of this damn guy. It's just like the windshield is just going to hit this, and I can't get around this thing. I think some people said that they've got in like R1 brake fluid reservoirs, put them on here instead, and then you have like this big block is gone, and then you can remount your windshield, but I haven't been able to figure it out yet. Other things that you might be wondering about having these bars like this is maneuverability in like a small parking lot like this. It is true that since these bars are at this angle like this and lower, that you lose some of that like really light front end feeling that the MT-09 had, and that's because the bars were like this, straight and up, so you got more leverage pushing. You have to push harder, and you're gonna have more weight on the front end. That's something to be something to keep in mind when you put these on. How much weight you used to shift on the bike when you were making movements. Don't shift as much, because this bike will turn in and dump over a lot faster than it used to be because of all the added weight now that of your body just hunched over like this on the front end versus it was before. So look out for that. Alright guys, that's my review of the Woodcraft clip-ons for the MT-09. If you guys found it helpful, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. If you got questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll come back and answer them for you. So until next time guys, I'll see you later. Peace!